Hello everyone and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 5th of September and today is a very special day because we are celebrating the first birthday, the first anniversary of the live Q&As with me. We did our first on the 30th of August 2018, over a year ago, and we have since done 40 live Q&A sessions together. So this is our 41st live Q&A session. So absolutely amazing stuff. Hello everyone, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in from Fiesole, from Italy, and from all around the world to join us today for this very special live Q&A. And you can see why I'm slightly delayed in getting to you today, because I took the opportunity to try and do some art and design on the whiteboard behind me to show off our celebratory nature of our conversation. As you can see, art and design was never my forte. I just about scraped through GCSE art. That is supposed to be a champagne glass behind me with some balloons and then above that some fireworks. But I'll leave you to imagine that more than to see that. And hopefully you're having a little celebration of your own somewhere around the world as well. Whether you're wearing a party hat, whether you've got a nice drink in hand, or whether you're planning to go on to one, have one later on today. This is a great day. 40 different live Q&As across the year, across various locations. And what I've done today is I've come back to the same location where I was for the very first live Q&A on the 30th of August 2018. So it really is a nice sense of full circle. Hello Melbourne, hello, thank you so much indeed. Hello from Athens, hello. From Brazil, hello Glees, how are you doing? Thank you so much everyone for tuning in. This is really wonderful and a really fantastic moment to just reflect on everything that we've achieved together over the last year through these live Q&As. A cup of tea in hand, Patricia. Excellent, very sensible. In fact, I've gone and left my coffee outside. I don't know. I did have a cup of coffee, but I've left it behind in my effort to do the exciting drawings on the back board. Kuala Lumpur, thank you so much for tuning in. Fantastic. Will I talk about the Silk Roads? Yes, we have an interesting question coming up about the wider ancient global history. You've got chicken soup, Linda, fantastic. Ellis is coming in from Buckinghamshire. Kerry's tuning in live. The Aussie is in London though, rather than in Australia. Should have had a fixed beer. Yes, if only I could have brought a fixed beer into the workplace, but it's still working hours. Shh. You've got a glass of Amarone in hand from in Italy. Of course you have. If it wasn't going to be Prosecco, it was going to be Amarone. But I wanted to say on a serious note, before we get on to today's questions, and may I say your questions that have come in today are absolutely superb. May I just say how a pleasure and a privilege it is to have spent this time with you, these 40 different live Q&As over the last year, in which we have answered, it's been totted up by the miraculous Claire, 249 different questions of yours that have come in that we've had fun discussions with through the live Q&As and also which you've contributed live on screen during the Q&A. So absolutely amazing stuff as we've been learning about the ancient world together, journeying through that together, discussing it and getting our views heard and discussed both online here in the live Q&As and of course through the Facebook page as well. So it's congratulations to you. The champagne and balloons and fireworks that are sort of drawn on the board behind me are for you guys, and I can't tell you how proud it makes me to think back across the year's worth of live Q&As about all the things that we have managed to discuss and learn and accomplish. So I hope you will take the chance to celebrate as top fans of Michael Scott, facebook.com/Michael Scott Academic, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for your participation and for your brilliance as well. So we move on, and of course it's also a prize week. Not only is this our first birthday celebrations, but this is a prize week. Am I a teacher? Yes indeed I'm a teacher. I'm a professor of classics and ancient history at the University of Warwick here in the UK, but I also, very close to my heart as being an academic, is spending a good deal of time engaging with the wider world, not just the students that I teach in the classroom, about why we should be thinking about the ancient world and what a fascinating and amazing thing it is to be thinking about. And that's the whole purpose of these live Q&As, as well as of the Facebook page, which is to allow people the chance to ask their questions, find out the answers to things that intrigue them about the ancient world. And indeed, I find that I learn a huge amount of stuff as well through my discussions with you. So, kind of true, Kimberly, hot chocolate tonight. Is it going to be laced with something though? Just a little something in it, maybe a little rum, just a little something to give it that extra kick. A whiskey perhaps, kind of just on the side, just a small one, No one will ever blame you. But we have to say that today is also a prize week. So each month that we do the Q&A, we also look back over the Q&As that we have done. And so we then pick one person from that whose question over the past month has really stood out, and they win a prize, which is a signed copy of one of my books. So I've been looking through the September questions that we had in, sorry, I should say the August questions rather, that we've had in to judge here at the beginning of September, and I have come up with a winner, which is Marietta Favalora. So if you're listening, Marietta, please get in touch through the Facebook page or via email, michaelscottacademic@gmail.com, to let us know your address where we can send you your book prize, and let us know whatever you would like written in it, and as I will happily sign it as well. And the question that Marietta came up with was talking about senses, and particularly about smell. She was asking about the smell of places, the smell of antiquity. How could we get into that? How could we communicate that through the wonders of social media, which can't quite yet do smell-o-vision. So we had a great discussion thinking about the smells of antiquity, the difference that smells make, how smell is an absolutely fascinating sense linked to our memory and to our emotions. So there we go. Marietta, thank you very much indeed for your great question, and do get in touch so that we can send you a surprise, a little something in the post, and let us know what you like in it. Okay, so we've done prize week. We've talked about the fact that it's our first birthday Q&A, the 41st Q&A, after answering 249 different questions. What I wanted to kick off with is some of your new questions that you've been sending in just this past couple of weeks. We had our first one was from Lee Edmond, who has been to see the Pompeii exhibition at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. Now, I would heartily recommend you get to go and see this. I haven't been to see it myself. We are in fact going with our Warwick undergraduate students in the middle of the autumn term, and we're taking all our students down to the Ashmolean to see the exhibition, myself and several other members of the department, as well as explore some of the other galleries of the Ashmolean Museum. So I am in the dark a little bit at the moment, as much as many of you should be. And Lee talks about, kind of builds towards, and gives a bit of a spoiler about what it builds towards, but to a particular figure called the Lady of Atlantis. Now, this is one of the casts that was done of someone who died in the eruption of Vesuvius that covered famously Pompeii and Herculaneum, as well as other places, in 79 AD. Now, the traditional way of creating these casts of bodies was to pour plaster, liquid plaster, into the hole that their body once occupied, but their body has since disintegrated away and just left the hole instead. But when you pour plaster into it, it mixes in with some of the bones that may still be present, some of the hard jewellery they were perhaps wearing, for instance, and it creates a plaster cast of their body, frozen in the position in time that they took up when they died. The Lady of Atlantis is interesting because it utilises a new technique where they first pour in wax into the hole, the wax hardens, they then get a layer of plaster around the wax, the plaster hardens, they then melt out the wax, and then they put in a clear epoxy resin. Now, the advantage of this is that, and then once the resin has hardened, they knock off the plaster. The resin is clear, it's see-through. So unlike the plaster, with the resin, with the Lady of Atlantis, you get to see the bits of her body that are still there remaining. Some of the bones, you get to see some of her jewellery still in place. So it gives you an even more augmented sense of the reality, of the terrifying reality of this poor woman's final moments. And dear old Lady of Atlantis is there with her kind of arms up like this, trying to protect herself from the eruption. The fury of the eruption. And Lee's question is a brilliant one, that he completely shocked, right? Completely shocked by the grim reality of her, and saw a tour guide going around the museum actually stopping and asking the people on the tour to just take a minute just to reflect on the Lady of Atlantis right there in front of them. And the question was this: what other artefacts from the classical world have given me such an emotional response, whether it be a very positive or a negative one? This is a great question, and I was thinking actually lots of things started to come to mind. I would be really interested to hear your thoughts on what you've seen, what kind of object in a museum perhaps somewhere or on a site from antiquity has inspired such a strong emotional reaction in you, whether it's a positive or a negative one. For me, it's things like sometimes you see children's toys, ancient 2,500-year-old children's toys, that have somehow survived. And I remember seeing one, it was like a little piggy figure that had the Greek for mummy written on it. And that, of course, is, I'm a father of a young child, that kind of immediately transports you, leaps you over the millennia between now and then, and you realise quite how much little has changed in terms of humans growing up and kids needing their toys. So that was one thing that really got me. When we were doing a documentary in 2014 looking at the Romans in Britain, and we were going around London, we were also in Caerwent and Caerleon, kind of over in Wales, but in the Museum of London, we were shown something absolutely extraordinary that had been found. It was a pot, a Roman metal pot, and when you took the lid off, there was face cream inside it, ancient Roman face cream that was still there, and it was in such good condition that you could see the fingerprint of the last person, probably a woman, to have put her finger in it, to put some cream on her face. And the fact that it was so fresh, and that it was so vital, and again, just so real and so modern, so like we do today, again, kind of gave you that instantaneous chill down the spine as it transported you back to Roman London, as to someone getting themselves ready, trying to make themselves look their best, as going forward. So we've had some answers coming in. Rosetta Stone boggles your brain. How they translate it, you'll never know. Child skeleton from the Roman era in the tiny museum in Malton, North Yorkshire. That sounds a really good one. Paul Caroline, thank you so much indeed for letting us know that. Linda, an engraved stone commemorating the life of a Roman soldier who died at the age of 19. Absolutely, those kind of short, pithy epitaphs given to people, and you imagine what their life was like, and the sad conclusion that came to the end of it. That's a brilliant one as well. Another one that got me, and you may have seen this in the Sicily documentaries we did, but when we went to the Capuchin catacombs outside of Palermo, there they have this weird tradition dating back centuries of preserving the bodies and then hanging them from the walls in a set of clothes chosen by the person when they were alive, that they would like to be hung in on this wall for all eternity. And one of the saddest sights in there was one of the very final bodies to be put in the Capuchin catacombs, to be preserved and then put in the Capuchin catacombs, was someone they now call the Sleeping Beauty of Palermo. And this is a 2-year-old girl who died, and her father was very well connected, and so managed not only to get the best body preserver expert that there was, but also to sort of bend the rules to have the Capuchin catacombs reopened, so that not only could this girl be preserved in perfect, fresh, like lifelike condition. I mean, it's absolutely scary to see, but to have her for all time lying in a coffin looking like she's asleep, for all to see that go there to visit it now. Fiona talked about was the Egyptian mummy in the Bolton Museum and Library. Took your breath away. Absolutely, the mummies are incredible, aren't they? The other one which came to mind for me, which is completely out of sort of left field, but I remember visiting when I was 18, 19 years old. I was in Italy, and I went to the hilltop town of San Gimignano. Many of you may have been to this place. It's famous for its towers, its tall standing towers, many of them within the citadel, sitting on the hilltop. But it also has a torture museum. You wouldn't really expect that. I don't think in San Gimignano, this beautiful town, ice cream on every corner, but it's also got a torture museum, and it's one of the most fascinating museums I've ever been to, in the sense that it goes throughout history and throughout the world, looking at the different skills and mechanics and instruments of torture that different cultures have come up with. And on the one hand, it absolutely chills you to the bone to think of the sheer violence that one human can think of to inflict on another, but also that you come out with a grudging respect, I think, for the skill with which, precision with which they have worked out how to do so. And the one that really got me was one where you, in Middle Ages, medieval torture, you got hung upside down with your legs splayed like that, and then a two-handled saw was put between your legs, and they just started sawing downwards through your body so that you didn't die until the saw got somewhere to your heart after an awful long time. Equally, there were torture instruments designed specifically for men and specifically for women. But then equally, there were torture instruments or torture mechanisms from different cultures. So they had an example of Chinese water torture there, which of course compared to the bloody instruments of the Western world didn't look too bad, but then you began to imagine what the impact that would have over a considerable period of time. And the museum ended, at least when I went there, with the electric chair, sitting in a room all by itself, which of course was giving a much more political message to the process. But Lee, I think this is an absolutely fantastic question you gave us, and already the answers coming in have sparked some incredible answers, an incredible range of things that really provoke such a strong emotional response in us. The skin and sinews intact, the clothes too preserved from the bog, yes, and you get some of those kinds of figures also from, if you go all the way to the other side of the world and you go to the nomadic communities of war, well, the ancient nomadic communities in what is nowadays Mongolia, eastern Russia, that have been preserved because of the frozen snow and ice. When those graves have been found, equally the bodies are often in equally good condition with the skin there, the tattoos that they had in the same condition, absolutely phenomenal. So Lee, thank you so much for your question. Absolutely amazing. We must press on because there's been so many good questions that have come in. I want to get to them all. We've had a question from Iceland, from one cold place to another, from Stefan Sverretsen, who's an 18-year-old student from Iceland, who's going to be heading off to university next year. You have been obsessed with ancient history as long as you can remember, but you've recently had some doubts because people have been saying, what can you do with studying ancient history? And Stefan, you're asking for advice about careers. Well, it all depends, of course, where you're thinking of going to university and then where you're thinking of basing your life, because different countries think about a degree in ancient history or classical civilization or classics or archaeology very, very differently. In the UK, we are very, very fortunate in the sense that when you go on into the job world after your university, many, many employers across a huge range of careers are not that interested or not that concerned about what subject you studied in university, as much as they're concerned about the quality of university you went to and the quality of the degree result you got. In which case, in the UK, it makes absolute sense for you to go to university to study a subject that you are passionate about and that you really enjoy, because you will do your best and when doing a subject that you're passionate about and which you enjoy. And so if that's ancient history, if you're thinking about coming to the UK and then perhaps working in the UK afterwards, I would heartily recommend that you follow your heart and do the subject that enthuses you, because you will do the best at it. That isn't necessarily the same, for instance, if you want to study in a lot of continental Europe, say in France or Germany. If you go and do a degree in ancient history or classical civilization, then you are on a path that has to be more linked to those subject areas. So are you going into heritage management? Are you going into academia? Are you going into practical archaeology? Are you going into library studies, for instance? All of these sorts of things. In Iceland, I don't know what the picture is. Please let us know what you think the picture is whether there is that flexibility in the same way that there is in the UK. But I think most importantly, my gut reaction would always be to say, do what you're passionate about, because that you will do your best in a subject that you are passionate about. Kimberly and Anna agrees, lots of things you can learn, lots of transferable skills from all sorts of degrees. Isabel wants to study in Hawaii. Well, don't we all want to study occasionally in Hawaii? But Stefan, thank you so much for getting in touch from Iceland, and let us know what decision you make, right? Come back, come back. Now, we've had a question as well that I wanted to get in before we go to another great question. One of the things I love about these Q&As is where people come forward with their questions, and we've created a great atmosphere in which people can ask their questions without thinking that they're being stupid or whether the question is silly or anything like that. I'm really, really proud that we've created that atmosphere between us, and it's as much due to you guys as to anyone else. So, here's a question from Lexa. Now, Lexa hasn't given her surname because she is at the moment studying classics and got asked whether she would like to apply for a postgraduate philology grant, and she was too nervous to ask at the time, the person who asked her, what exactly philology was. And so she's come to us, right? So what does philology cover, right? This is where we give our answer. Well, kind of what is classical philology? And you're absolutely right, as you said. Is it literally the study of an ancient language? Lexa, you are absolutely right. Philology is a very broad term which kind of can mean pretty much anything to do with language and literature. So, for example, there is the Classical Philology Journal that's been around since 1906, and it is dedicated, quite simply, I'm going to read this here from its own website, to the life, language and thought of Greece and Rome. A very, very broad church. And normally, classical philology is the umbrella term for everything that has been transmitted from antiquity in some kind of written form, that exists in Greek or Latin. So I think when this person was asking you to apply for a postgrad philology grant, it was just pretty much anything to do with literature. And I think you should definitely apply. I think you should apply and say that you're kind of, you are desperate to continue your studies in classical philology, and that you should take a copy of your favourite Greek or Latin text and go and read it on a beach somewhere the next summer. So there we go. Right, we've got a couple more things I wanted to point out to you in the news. We've had a couple of these flagged on the Facebook page already. Ancient tombs have been unearthed in Nemea, which is shedding light on the early Mycenaean civilization. So from the late Mycenaean period, 1400 to 1200 BC. Now, this is sort of around the time also of the Trojan War, when people think the Trojan War, if the Trojan War happened, that it happened around 1250, 1275 BC. So the last kind of fling, if you like, of the Greek Mycenaean civilization. So these tombs are really interesting because they're keying in to that exact sort of time period when we think the historical, real-life Greek expedition against the citadel of Troy may have happened, which then, of course, got inflated by storytellers in the centuries afterwards to become that of Homer's Iliad. From the Archaeology News Network, we've heard about light traces of earthquakes being discovered at Himera. Now, Himera is a beautiful battle site to go to, and their museum I would recommend 150%. We were there for the Sicily programs and handling the bones of those who had died in battle at Himera when the Greeks were facing off against the Carthaginians, including those that had still got arrow tips embedded in their bones. And by the way, the Sicily series, if you're interested in watching it, if you haven't caught it so far, they're repeating it again very soon, actually on the 17th and 18th of September on BBC 4. So we'll flag that on the Facebook page, and it'll be on BBC iPlayer as well for you afterwards. Back closer to home in the UK, in West Berkshire, we've had a description of a discovery of a Roman mosaic, one of the most exciting discoveries of its kind, kind of second to none in terms of the skill of the image and the iconography. And then what's on? We have to note two things, one of which I'm giving a lecture next week on Friday, the 13th of September for the British Science Festival, which is going to be at the University of Warwick in Coventry. They're free lectures. I'm going to be doing a talk about ancient Greece virtually. So just log on to the website, British Science Festival, and hopefully there will be some tickets left that you can grab. So I hope to see you there next Friday the 13th. And we've also just launched our Warwick Classics Network, has launched a new day on the 21st of November, which is our storytelling, ancient world storytelling day. We're so proud of this. We've got great people coming. Natalie Haynes is coming, Caroline Lawrence is coming. We've got Alexandra Shepherd, another fantastic writer of early kids fiction, and half the day is going to be aimed at sort of Key Stage 2 and 3, and then half the day going to be aimed at Key Stage 4 and 5. And also I'll be talking, as well as a number of other members of staff from Warwick University, so it's going to be an absolutely astounding day. Emily Hauser is also going to be there from Exeter, who's been writing kind of the adaptations of the Trojan War series from the perspectives of the female participants. So it's going to be a great day. Again, it's free, so if you've got kids studying in schools, get your teachers involved, get them to sign up as soon as possible and come and join us. And equally, if you can't make that in November, then in January, on the 31st of January 2020, Warwick University Classics Department is also hosting its annual drama festival, and we are doing Oedipus Rex. So get your tickets soon for that kind of thing. That would be absolutely fantastic, and it'd be lovely to see you there, and I'll be talking at that event as well. Okay, we've got time for one more question. This one I just couldn't resist. Hang on a sec. Well, let me find it. Okay. Sarah Scotty, thank you very much for this one. You're currently reading Mark Forsyth's A Short History of Drunkenness. It's an excellent book, I'm sure it is, and it includes a Sumerian drinking song. Kind of Josette wanted to come along to that lecture, but nowhere I could make it after the school run. Oh no! Like I think, well, fingers crossed, there'll be some kind of online version video that you can see afterwards, Josette, and good luck with the school run in the meantime. But Sarah Scotty's question about drunkenness. What are some good classical drinking songs? Asking for a friend, of course you are, Sarah. Bonus points are awarded if the songs are demonstrated. Well, we do like a challenge. And so in the last 2 minutes that we have here as part of today's Q&A, I am happy to introduce you to the Athenian drinking song that was sung in honour of Harmodius and Aristogeiton. Okay, so let's do some explanation. Harmodius and Aristogeiton were two men who, in the years running up to the kind of advent of Athenian democracy in 508 BC, they were two people sympathetic to a democratic sort of kind of perhaps system, but most importantly they hated the current tyrants that were ruling Athens, two brothers called Hippias and Hipparchus. And Aristogeiton and Harmodius were part of a revolutionary rebel band that intended to kill Hippias and Hipparchus. Now, what happened in 514 BC when they were planning their attack? It got to the day, they had their knives secreted under their clothes, there was a panic, a bit of miscommunication, they thought perhaps they'd been betrayed, so they went in as fast as they could, the two of them. They managed to kill one of the two tyrants, Hipparchus. Hippias got away to live on even more tyrannically for another couple of years before he too was forced to flee. One of the two, Harmodius and Aristogeiton, was killed, the other was perhaps tortured. But they later became heroes of the Athenian Greek democracy, and a statue group, a very famous statue group of Harmodius and Aristogeiton was erected in the Agora in Athens, and no other statue could be put anywhere near it, so it was an incredibly important statue. The Persians nicked it when they raided Athens in 480, and Alexander the Great supposedly brought it back a century or so later when he trounced into Persia. But what we hear from the ancient Greek writer Athenaeus in his Deipno Sophistai, in his kind of clever, snazzy dinner table chat book, is the fact that there was a drinking song that the Athenians used to celebrate a little bit of Harmodius and Aristogeiton. Now, I have my glass of something Greek wine, and here we go. I'll wreathe my sword in myrtle bough, that sword that laid the tyrant low, when patriots burning to be free to Athens gave equality. Nice rhyming, nice translation, I think you'll agree. Harmodius, hail through reft of breath, though ne'er shall feel the stroke of death, the happy hero's isle shall be, the bright abode allotted thee. I'll wreathe the sword in myrtle bough, the sword that laid Hipparchus low, when at Minerva's adverse fame he knelt and never rose again. While freedom's name is understood, you shall delight the wise and good. You dared to set your country free and gave her laws equality. To you, Harmodius and Aristogeiton, to you all. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of the week, ringing in your ears with Harmodius and Aristogeiton, a cry for liberty and equality and the rule of law, which I think you will agree, out there in the real world at the moment, we could really do with a little bit more of, or at least a little bit of sense. Anyway, on that note, I will leave you be. We are out of time. Thank you so much for joining me for this celebration Q&A, our first birthday, our 41st live Q&A, having answered 249. We're now over the 250 mark of questions answered from you, and you got a drinking song, which you can repeat ad infinitum. And people will be amazed as you sit there drinking in the pub, reciting your ancient Greek drinking songs to Harmodius and Aristogeiton. Everyone, have a fantastic rest of the week. We will see you again in 2 weeks. So next time is the 19th of September, Thursday the 19th of September at 4 p.m, just after Sicily re-airs on BBC 4 on the 17th and 18th. Have a fantastic rest of the weekend. Look after yourselves and see you next time. Take care.